Hey, what's up guys? This is Neal Reyes and I want to welcome you to today's episode of Champions Minute. Have you ever heard the phrase that hindsight is 20/20? That's because once you've already lived through a thing, it's easy to look back and see it with perfect clarity. It's easy to see the things that you would have done different or maybe that you should have done. What would you think if I told you that there's a way when making decisions you can always see the end from the beginning? Get ready. Have you ever had a time where you were faced with a big decision, but you weren't sure exactly what to do about it? This was a decision that maybe you knew was going to impact your future potentially for years or even the lives around you, but you just weren't sure what the correct decision should be. Today I'm going to teach you about the name El-Roi. El-Roi is one of the names of God, and as I've spoken before on our previous broadcasts, that there are 16 main names of God that I teach on and how to apply those in prayer. Recently, I had a discussion with someone and they were asking me about the significance of knowing these names. First of all, these are the Hebrew names of God that God, when He revealed Himself in a specific situation or character to an individual, they were able to know Him in that regard or call upon Him in that regard or in that character in the future. That's why it's so significant for us to know the names of God. The name of God that we're going to be studying today is El-Roi. It's El-Roi, and that means the God who sees. You know, sometimes we come through situations in life and we're faced with big decisions, and sometimes we just don't know exactly what to do or how to make the decision that we feel is the correct one. You know, it tells us in the Word that the peace that transcends all understanding shall be upon you. When we seek God and we ask Him, if something makes sense logically, but there's no peace inside, that's Him usually showing you that that's not His perfect will for your life. At the same time, though, sometimes we'll encounter situations and it can feel like we're getting pressure from all sides. Maybe you're getting attacked at work, or you're getting attacked by an ex, or you're getting attacked by, people around you or your bosses or whatever, and you just don't know what's going on. And it seems like the attack is picked up and you have no idea why. Understanding God as El-Roi can be a significant advantage for you in those times. The reason for that is because El-Roi, God as El-Roi, is the God who sees. In other words, God always sees the end from the beginning. And when we go before Him and pray and exalt the name El-Roi over specific situations we're facing, that doesn't necessarily mean that He'll show you a glimpse of the future and everything in front of you. If He did that, you would always be led by signs instead of by faith. And it tells us in His Word that we're to walk by faith and not by sight. It also tells us that we cannot be pleasing to God unless we operate by faith. But when we encounter a situation that we just need some specific direction on within our lives, we have the ability and authority to exalt the name El-Roi over that situation, that He's the God who sees, and that He can guide and lead our footsteps in that. Even if we don't know what the outcome will be, we can walk in faith and listen for His voice and instruction and listen for that inner peace. So when making decisions, we know what the correct course of action is. I want to tell you about a story, and if you know the story about Abraham and Sarah, they had Isaac as a son, and Abraham's known as the father of many nations because of his descendants that came through Isaac. However, before that, they didn't have him until Abraham was 100, okay? So before that, when Abraham was 86 years old, he was without child. And Sarah, before she was called Sarah, at this time his name was not Abraham, it was Abram, and Sarah was actually known as Sarai. Sarai had a handmaiden she had decided, she came up with this great idea that she wanted Sarai to lay with Abraham so that she could give him a descendant, since Sarai had not been able to do so. So if you know the story, Hagar listens to her Sarai, who she served, and she goes with Abraham, and as she does, she lays with him. But after that, Sarai became very mean towards Hagar. So Hagar one day leaves and she flees their camp. And an angel encounters her down the road and asks her what she's doing and why she's running away. As Hagar begins to explain why she's left, the angel gives a spoken word from the Lord and explains to her that she's going to have a son, and the son's name will be named Ishmael. And he tells her that he wants her to go back to the camp and to submit herself to Sarai, and that she would have this baby. So we're going to pick up and read a very specific verse, and this is the first verse that we encounter the name El-Roi within the word. This is actually out of Genesis 16, verse 13. Verse 13, then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees. For she said, have I also seen him who sees me? You see, the angel appeared to her and talked with her. And she had called God by his character in that situation, El-Roi, the God who sees, because she didn't know she was pregnant yet. And this angel not only could tell her that she was pregnant and would have a boy and what to name that boy, but also gave her very specific instruction regarding her future. Another story I want to share with you is regarding King David. When King David was, when he was king of Israel, and he's still the king today, okay? But when he was the king of Israel, he had amassed all the supplies he needed to rebuild the temple of God. And when he did that, God told him one day when he was before him that he would not be allowed to build the temple. That even though he had gathered all the materials for it, he wouldn't be allowed to build it because he had been a man of war and had shed blood. And because of that, he wouldn't be able to do it. But God began to speak to him about all of his sons, and he told him who would ascend to the throne after David was gone. This is where God tells him that Solomon would be king, and David then tells all of Israel and his family that Solomon's going to inherit the kingdom, but he's also going to be the one to build the throne. Let's go to 1 Chronicles 28, 9 through 10, and I'm going to read you a scripture. This is David talking, King David talking. As for you, my son Solomon, know the God of your father and serve him with a loyal heart and with a willing mind. For the Lord searches all hearts and understands all the intent of thoughts. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will cast you off forever. Consider now, for the Lord has chosen you to build a house for the sanctuary. Be strong and do it. You know, sometimes God will put things before us that he wants us to do, but we just don't know what the correct steps or answers are that we're supposed to make. It could be that you're going through a very difficult situation right now. Maybe you're facing a job change or potential job change. Maybe God's been speaking to your heart that he's prompting you to apply for a new job. And maybe things are going great at your job and you just can't understand why he's prompting you to move forward. Well, I want to tell you that with God, he will turn around and show you exactly what he needs you to do for your future. Why? Because he's El-Roi. He's the God who sees. However, we have to allow him to see and then instruct and speak into our lives. You know, years ago, I used to describe to people that the Lord had given me a vision one day, and he had given me a vision of my walk with him, and specifically it was around my calling in life. And as he did, he showed me that we were in this car, a very nice car, and that his hands were on the steering wheel, but my foot was on the gas. In other words, I wasn't controlling the steering or the direction of where that car was going, but my foot was on the gas pedal, which determined how fast we'd get to the destination. You see, when we trust in God to steer the vehicle of our lives and of our calling to get us to the future, we'll arrive exactly where we're supposed to be. But if we never take the first step and place our foot on the gas, We may know that He's El-Roi and that He sees the end from the beginning, but we can never arrive at our destination until we decide to step on it. I hope you have found this teaching encouraging. I want to tell you that the name El-Roi means the God who sees. If you're going through a circumstance in your relationships today, if you're going through a circumstance maybe in your marriage today, maybe it's with your job, your family, maybe it's just life in general. Maybe you're out there and you're a single mom, or when I say single mom, maybe you're a woman who is not married yet and have recently found out that you're pregnant and you have no idea what you're supposed to do. The pressures of life are squeezing you and weighing down on you so hard, you have no idea what you're supposed to do about that child. I want to tell you that God has a perfect plan for your future. We may not always take the perfect steps to connect with that, but when we give our lives over to God and we exalt Him as El-Roi over our future, He becomes the God who sees, and He's always able to see the end from the beginning. It tells us in His Word, and I read it to you earlier, that man judges by the outward appearance, but only God can judge by the intentions of the heart. Guys, we want to remind you that Jesus is Lord and He loves you. We want to remind you to go by our website at nealreyes.com and check out all of our teaching resources, which we believe will be a blessing to you. We're so grateful and thankful for you. We're praying for you every day, and we love you. Thank you for stopping by, and have a blessed day.